Right, so this practical is how to extract iron from iron tablets and to actually analyse whether the iron tablets that we've got have got the correct iron content in them. These are the iron tablets. Now, according to this, they should have around about 200 milligrams of iron inside an iron tablet. So, first thing that we need to do is we actually need to weigh 6 iron tablets out. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to weigh 6 iron tablets out. Now, first thing you need is any type of beaker, glass, plastic, it doesn't matter what type of beaker is on this one. Make sure that the lid is up on the balance itself. Give it a quick clean if it needs a quick clean. And then secondly, what you need to do is you need to put your beaker on top of the balance and press the 0 button. Otherwise, you're just going to get the weight of the beaker and the iron tablets, and that's not what we're looking for. So, using your iron tablets from before, open them up, and you want 6 iron tablets in the beaker. Now make sure once you've got your 6 iron tablets, that you record the weight. So for the purposes of this one, it's 2.68 grams. Make sure that you make a note of your weight itself. So in my case, iron tablets are 2.68 grams. Next thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to crush the iron tablets. The best way to actually crush the tablets is to actually lightly press and rotate on each of the tablets. And what you should see happening is the coating should naturally just come away from the tablet. So what should happen is in the middle there you should have 6 crushed iron tablets. When it gets to the point where it looks like a little bit of sediment at the bottom of the mortar, start to rotate it. Don't crush it and don't press down on it. You're using more energy than what you need to do. Just start rotating it in a circular motion, and what should happen is all the bits should go towards the middle of the mortar itself, making it a lot easier for you to use the pestle and mortar, using less energy and gaining a more consistent powder, which is what we're looking for. The aim of this is to try and get as much of the coating off as possible. So make sure that you can crush it until a fine powder. Shouldn't take too long. Like so. Now the other key thing to point out as well is that you will have some left on the end of your actual pestle itself. Give it a light little tap and try and get as much of that off as you can. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to actually turn it into a solution and to try and dissolve as much as the iron tablet in a compound as possible to try and extract the most out of the tablets. Right, so for this next bit, what we need to do is we need to try and get the iron into a solution and try and leave the coating of the tablet to one side. So what we're going to do with this, we're going to use our first chemical, which is 2 molar sulfuric acid. Now 2 molar sulfuric acid is corrosive and it will be quite dangerous if you get it on your hands, on any other part of your body. So make sure when you're doing this practical, you're wearing the correct PPE. Gloves, apron, or lab coat, and safety glasses as well. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use 100, in this case 100 centimetre cubed measuring cylinder to measure 50 centimetres cubed of sulfuric acid out. Make sure you get it as accurately as you can. The more accurate you get for this bit, the more iron content you'll extract out of it, the stronger it will be and the more accurate your results will be. It's all about accuracy, what we're trying to do with this one. So with your pre-crushed tablets that you've done in the previous step, we're going to need to add this into a 250ml conical flask. And what we're going to do is we're going to add the powdered solution to the conical flask, add the sulfuric acid to the conical flask, and we're going to try and make it into a solution. So the best way to do this is to actually use a spatula. We want to try and make sure that every bit of the tablet goes into the conical flask. So take your time with this bit. This is the bit where if you drop some on the bench, you will affect the result that you will get. So, best way of doing it, as you can see as I'm doing that, just try and scrape a lot of it together to try and make sure that it's not clumped to the sides. You won't be able to get all of it out of the pestle and mortar. But what you will be able to do is you'll be able to get most of the product that you need from it. So what you can do then is just start scooping it in to your conical flask. This is another key point to actually bring up when you're doing your method. Remember to always take pictures of the different bits and pieces that you think you've lost your yield on. If you've lost your yield on some parts of it, remember to take the picture and comment on your method where you think you've lost your yield itself. Then with any last bits that you've got, if you're feeling confident, what you can do is you can just pour it straight into your conical flask. Like so. Now, at the end of it, you will have some still left in your pestle and mortar. Try and get as much of that out as you can. Give it a little tap on the side and try and get as much of the tablet out as you can. And try and put it into your conical flask. Like so. Now, the next step will be adding the acid to the actual iron tablets themselves. So add your 50 centimetres cubed of 2 moles sulfuric acid, and what you need to do is you need to start giving it a swirl. Now as you'll see, it'll start to clump up. Now what we want to do is we want to try and get as much of the iron content dissolved in that as possible. Now to do this, to actually speed the reaction up, you can use heat. It can be used as a catalyst, will actually help the reaction go quicker. Now the problem that you've got is, if you add too much heat, it oxidizes. If you don't add enough heat, it won't dissolve. So, best way of doing it, put your hand underneath it and give it a swirl that way. The reason that we're doing it that way is because the heat from your hand should be enough to get most of that iron tablet dissolved in the acid. So make sure that you've got the bottom of your hand on the conical. It'll feel cold at first, but don't worry, it'll heat up. And just give it a swirl. With fresh sulfuric acid, because when you make it up it actually comes out warm, what will actually happen is you won't need to do this step. But in this case, because we're using old sulfuric acid, we need to make sure that we can actually warm it up a little bit. And as you can see, through the stirring, we have actually got some of the iron tablet dissolving. Now keep doing this until you've got as much of the coating on top as possible. So what you should see little bits, little pieces in there. They're the coating bits of the tablet. Now, in the next step, which we'll do in a couple of minutes' time, we will need to filter them out because they will affect the results. If for some reason not all of it is reacted and you need to add a little bit more heat to it, talk to your tutor first just to make sure that you can add a little bit of heat to it. We don't want to oxidize it, we just want to make sure that we can dissolve all of the iron in the sulfuric acid. So best thing to do, make sure that your gas is on, make sure that the air hole is closed for health and safety reasons, and what you want to do is you want to turn your Bunsen on to a yellow flame. Like so. Now, for this, What I recommend doing is using your gas tap, turn the gas down very slowly. So you've got a little bit of a flame there. You don't want a lot of heat, so if you turn your gas down and limit the heat that's coming through the Bunsen, you'll be able to control the reaction quicker, be able to actually get the product that you want at the end of it. Now what you want to do is you don't want to put it on a full blue flame, but you do want it where you've got a little bit of heat to it. And then what you do is, with your iron tablets, give it a quick swirl before you put it over the top, and you want to put it just above the flame. Give it a bit of distance between the flame, and then leave it on for a few seconds and take it away. Give it a swirl, same again. Little bit of distance, give it a bit of heat, and you should start to see that a lot of the actual content itself will start to dissolve. And what you should get is you should start to see a little bit of a green tint in the actual solution that you're making. That's what we're looking for. You don't want it bright green, but you want it enough so you can actually see that the iron is starting to be extracted from the tablets. One more time should do that. There you go. So as you can see there now, with a bit of help from the Bunsen burner and very little heat, you've actually been able to dissolve quite a lot of the actual iron into the sulfuric acid. The next bit that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to filter that to make sure that any of the coating is no longer in that solution. We don't want to test for the coating, we want to test for the iron tablets themselves. And we're trying to see what the purity of the iron tablets are. So, this next bit, we're going to need a volumetric. So for this next bit, what we're going to need is, we're going to need a volumetric flask. Key thing to make sure with the volumetric flask is that you can see the line very clearly on the volumetric. If you can't, don't worry, put a little bit of a dot on there to make sure that you can see the line, but don't do too much of a dot, it's just for your own purposes. Next thing we're going to need is a filter funnel. Now the filter funnel is important because that's the bit that we're going to use to actually filter the stuff. So that goes into the volumetric. The other thing that we're going to need is filter paper. Now some filter paper, it comes in many different grades. You can get very, very precise filter paper to make sure that you get a very consistent result, or you've got filter paper to just get rid of solids out of it. We're using the lower of the two, so we're actually using the one to get the solid out of it. We don't really care that much about the consistency of the solution that we're getting, because all we're after is the actual iron content in it as well. So for this, all we need to do is extract the solid from it. So first thing that we need to do is we need to rinse out the volumetric flask. So, to clean the volumetric flask, you need a bit of distilled water. And all you need to do, as you do with every titration, is give it a bit of water just in there, just to make sure that it's fully clean for when you're doing it. Give it a quick swirl, and pour it down your sink. Make sure to condition everything before you use it. So the same thing goes for your filter funnel. And when you were going to the titration, which is the actual analysis part of it, remember to actually condition all the equipment that you use before you use it. Right, so the next bit that we're going to do is, we're going to use the filter funnel. Just move the Bunsen so you can see it. you're going to use your volumetric and your filter funnel. And what then you're going to do is you're going to actually filter your product. So best way of doing it, there's many different ways that you can actually flute a filter paper. Best way of doing it for me is fold it half again, and then what you want to do is put that into your filter funnel like so, and then what you need to do is you need to add some of your product to that. Make sure when you're putting your liquid in, don't go over the top of the filter paper, because you have got a chance then of any of the actual coating going into your solution and you're just going to have to filter it again. It'd be a waste of time and you may have to start all over again. So just be careful when you're pouring it in. Now it'll look like a wallpapery paste type consistency. What you'll see is from the top, from that bit that's left, is actually becoming clear at the bottom. So you can see that all that white bit in the actual liquid itself is actually the coating, and that's what you're extracting from it. Now as well, if you look at the actual liquid at the bottom, there's a slight green tint to it. That's your iron content that's making the green tint. So what we do is we just let that filter. Now we're just coming up to the end of the filtration process now. The key thing is when you're filtering it, don't force the filter through. If you poke it with anything, the chances are the filter paper is going to rip again and you're going to have to start all over again. So just let it do its own natural thing. While you're waiting, clean any of the equipment up that you've used so far, just to give you a bit of a working space for the next bit. The next bit's going to be the titration side of it. So what we'll do is we'll set up the titration equipment. You should have done titration before. If not, refer to the actual previous titration video. I'll put the link in the bio section so you can go straight to that if you're not sure what a titration is, but you should have done it now already. And what you should see is, as you're getting close to the end, it will take longer to actually filter it. Just give it some time, it will all filter. And what you should see, like it is on mine, on the side of the filter papers themselves, you will actually see the coating of the iron tablets itself. So the iron tablets can now actually be extracted, so you've got the coating on the side, the iron in the middle. Now that's the key bit, the iron in the bottom there. The iron at the bottom is the bit that we're looking for. That's what we're comparing for the 200 milligrams of iron tablets that we discussed earlier. We're going to compare whether that really does have 200 milligrams in the six of the tablets. So what we'll do is in a second, I'll show you the filtrate and then we'll show you what actually happens with the filter paper. Now at this point, it will be tempting to squeeze the filter paper to get as much of the filtrate out as possible. Remember, it is acid in there and it will burn if it comes into contact with skin. So just give it time, it will naturally filter through on its own. So as you can see, that's the filter paper, that's the coating of the iron tablets on there. So there's a lot of coating on the iron tablets. Remember to take a picture of that as well, because you can actually use it in your method and your results to say where you think yield might have been lost. There may be still some iron there, even though it's just a coating, there may be some iron still on the tablets themselves. Right, so for the next bit, what we need to do is we need to make sure that we put that up to the line using distilled water. Now while it was filtering, I filled the distilled water container up, so we should have enough. But what you need to do first is you need to rinse the actual filter funnel, just in case there are any extra bits of iron there that you may have not got. And then what you need to do is put it up to the line using distilled water without it spilling everywhere. If you do get some on the bench, just wipe it up with some tissue. Right, so the key bit is, don't go over the line. If you go over the line, you're going to have to do this all over again. So, at this point, when you're getting very close to it like I am, it is advised to use a pipette. That's a pipette. So, what you need to do is get some of your distilled water, make sure that your pipette's clean, fill your pipette up and go down to eye level of it. And you want to make sure that you get it as close to the line as possible. Now, what I'll do is I'll bring it up close so you can see it. Your actual meniscus of your solution needs to be touching the line itself. Same as what you usually would do with a titration. Make sure that it is as close to the line as possible. If you go over the line, you've got to start all over again. So make sure that you don't go over the line. And then all you need to do is invert it about 5 times to make sure that it's fully mixed. And that is your iron tablet solution made up. So now, the 6 iron tablets that we've got, we've put it in the pestle and mortar. We've then added sulfuric acid to it, 2 moles sulfuric acid. We've then lightly heated it, made sure that we've extracted as much as the iron tablets as we possibly can. We've then filtered the iron tablet to make sure that we get the coating out of it, and we've topped that up using distilled water to 250 centimetres cubed. Next thing we need to do is a titration. Right, so now we're at the titration stage of it. You've got your iron tablet solution. That's one of the things that we're going to be using. And we're going to be using called potassium permanganate or potassium manganate 7. Or if you want the chemical formula, it's KMnO4. We don't need an indicator for this one because we're looking for the first pink colour change. With your actual solution you're using being purple anyway, you don't need an indicator because it'll act as its own indicator to change colour. So, first thing that you need to do is condition everything. So, as you used to, get your burette, distill water. Don't need to fill it all the way to the top. What you need to do, just invert it on itself. Now, the other key bit as well is there's going to be some solution from the last titration in the bottom there. Make sure that you use a sink and run the tap so that there's no solution from the previous experiment still in there. Same with your bowl pipette. Bowl pipette, do it over the sink, bit of water, put your thumb over the top of it quickly, turn it upside down and quickly rotate it. And then let it out. That's the first step of conditioning the equipment done. The second step is you need to actually fill it up with the solutions that you're going to use. So, using a 250ml glass beaker, pour some of your solution, not all your solution, because if you pour all your solution in and you do it wrong, you're going to mess the whole titration up. So just use a little bit of your solution. Around about 100 centimetres cube, I would say. And what you need to do is you need to condition your bowl pipette. This solution is going to go into your conical flask because that's the thing you're actually testing for. So, best way of doing it, at the top, lightly turn and put the bowl pipette in the pipette filler. Then slowly, using your wheel, as you've seen in the past, use your wheel to extract a little bit of it. You don't need to fill it all the way to the top for this bit. And then quickly take it off. Put your thumb over the top and quickly rotate it round. And then chuck that little bit in your sink. Same again. Make sure you do it twice just in case. This little bit. Take it off the top. Thumb over the top. Quickly rotate it, like so, and pour it down the sink. So that's your first bit done. First bit of equipment conditioned. Second bit of equipment that you need to condition is burette. Now the common thing with burettes are that people will leave the tap open. Potassium permanganate stains a lot. It stains your skin, it stains clothes, it stains floor. Best thing to do is to make sure that your tap's closed beforehand. If it's across like that, it means that your tap's closed. If it's up like that, it means that your tap's open. So for this case, make sure that it's closed. And using a filter funnel, like so, what we're going to do is we're going to actually pour a tiny amount of your permanganate into your burette. Then, same again. You want to make sure that that's conditioned. So put your thumb over the top, making sure that you've got gloves on. Rotate it. And then what you want to do is you want to put that straight into the sink. Now, any of the water that you've got left from conditioning it the first time will be washed away with the permanganates, which shouldn't affect your result. Your result should be as accurate as you can possibly make it. That's why we always say to condition it with the actual stuff that you're using for the titration beforehand. Right, the next thing that you need to do is rinse your funnel out. Give it a quick rinse out. And then what you need to do is you need to top your burette up to as close to the zero as you possibly can. Now the best way of doing this is overfill it, but not by too much. With the permanganate, it's going to be difficult to see where the end point is because of the colour of it. So as you can see there, I've deliberately overfilled it. The reason that I've deliberately overfilled it is because you can actually then take it down to the 0 point. So, remove your funnel. Put it down to 0. Like so. And what you can see now is, if I bring it closer to the camera, you can actually see that it's as close to 0 as we can possibly get it. Right, so now we're at the titration stage of it. You've got your iron tablet solution. That's one of the things that we're going to be using. And we're going to be using called potassium permanganate, or potassium manganate 7. Or if you want the chemical formula, it's KMnO4. We don't need an indicator for this one because we're looking for the first pink colour change. With your actual solution you're using being purple anyway, you don't need an indicator because it'll act as its own indicator to change colour. So, first thing that you need to do is condition everything. So, as you used to, get your burette, distill water. Don't need to fill it all the way to the top. What you need to do, just invert it on itself. Now, the other key bit as well is there's going to be some solution from the last titration in the bottom there. Make sure that you use a sink and run the tap so that there's no solution from the previous experiment still in there. Same with your bulb pipette. Bulb pipette, do it over the sink, bit of water, put your thumb over the top of it quickly, turn it upside down and quickly rotate it, and then let it out. That's the first step of conditioning the equipment done. The second step is you need to actually fill it up with the solutions that you're going to use. So, using a 250ml glass beaker, pour some of your solution, not all your solution, because if you pour all your solution in and you do it wrong, you're going to mess the whole titration up. So just use a little bit of your solution. Around about 100 centimetres cube, I would say. And what you need to do is you need to condition your bulb pipette. This solution is going to go into your conical flask because that's the thing you're actually testing for. So, best way of doing it, at the top, lightly turn and put the bulb pipette in the pipette filler. Then slowly, using your wheel, as you've seen in the past, use your wheel to extract a little bit of it. You don't need to fill it all the way to the top for this bit. And then quickly take it off, put your thumb over the top, and quickly rotate it round. And then chuck that little bit in your sink. Same again, make sure you do it twice just in case. This little bit. Take it off the top. Thumb over the top. Quickly rotate it, like so, and pour it down the sink. So that's your first bit done. First bit of equipment conditioned. Second bit of equipment that you need to condition is burette. Now the common thing with burettes are that people will leave the tap open. Potassium permanganate stains a lot. It stains your skin, it stains clothes, it stains floor. Best thing to do is to make sure that your tap's closed beforehand. If it's a cross like that, it means that your tap's closed. If it's up like that, it means that your tap's open. So for this case, make sure that it's closed. And using a filter funnel, like so, what we're going to do is we're going to actually pour a tiny amount of your permanganate into your burette. The next thing that we need to do is we need to take some of the solution that you've made up, which is in the speaker here, and you need to prepare 25 centimeters cubed of your solution into the pipette. Now, as you can see, I've deliberately again overfilled it. The reason for this is you can control it better if you put your thumb over the top and rotate it slowly. So, I'll show you. It takes some practice. Quickly, take that off, put your thumb over the top. And what you can see is you've actually created a vacuum. Now, slowly it'll start to go down like so, until it gets to the point like that. Put it straight into your conical flask. Leave your pipette in there to naturally just pour out. That will take some getting used to, and you may need to practice a few times with water, but once you get the knack of it, it should be easy then to do a titration. It's one of the key points when doing a titration. Think of ways to make it easier to get the accuracy of the solution that you're putting in. Now what you've got there is, you've got some still left at the bottom. Tap that at the bottom and the side under your solution to get as much of the liquid out as you can. You're not going to be able to get all the liquid out, but you'll be able to get most of it out. And that should be us set up for the titration. Right, so the next bit that we need to do is we need to set our table up so we know exactly what we're recording. So, first bit is going to be your initial titer. And obviously that's in centimetres cubed. Next bit is your end titer in centimetres cubed. Next bit is total titer. Now, for the purposes of learning it, your initial and your end titer. So it's 1, take away 2. That gives you your total titer. Now what we're looking for here is 3 concordant titers. So concordant means that you need to get, 2 concordant titers. In this case, you want it so concordant titers are 0.1 centimetre cubed apart. So hopefully, we should only need 3. Don't worry if you need more than 3. So, that is what your graph or your table should look like. Now, your table should look something like that. Now, your initial titer is your initial reading on your burette. So remember that we filled it up in the previous step. We know that that initial titer, the first one, is 0.0. Because we put it as accurately as we possibly can to the top. If it's not 0.0, if it's 0.1, 0.2, 0.5, it doesn't matter. Just write your initial titer down. Next bit is we're actually going to carry out the titration. Right, so now it's time to start the titration. Now the end point you're looking for is your first pink colour. Now, dependent on how you do this, best way of doing it is to lift this up a little bit, because as you can see, the burette is just a bit too tall for it. So lift it up a little bit and then bring it down. So make sure that you're not hitting the side of your conical flask. If you're hitting the side of the conical flask, you're titrating stuff that you might not necessarily get the result for. It won't be as accurate. But again, if you do that, mention it in your write-up that some of the titra or some of the actual solution hit the side of the conical. It might have been more or less depending on what you've done. So first thing you need to do, first titration should always be a rough titration. Try and make it so you get quite an accurate result, but if you do your first one, you'll know roughly where the end point is. So it's all about trial and error, the first one. But if you're accurate when you're doing it, as you can see, with your first one, turned pink. Now that's probably slightly a little bit over, but the best thing to do is to make a note of the actual result that you've got. So for this, reading the burette, it comes in at 17.0. So, using your actual table, 0, take away 17, 17. So your total titra for the first one is 17. It is also going to be your initial titra for the second one, because you finished on 17 anyway. You don't need to top up every time, but if you want to top up to make yourself feel more comfortable while doing it, then you can do. As you can see with the solution we've just finished with, it will fade away. Potassium permanganate reacts with light. It reacts with light and it goes to a colourless solution. So as soon as you see the first pink colour, take your titration endpoint straight away. Don't think you've made a mistake. It's what happens with the potassium permanganate. So same again. Make your solution. Or I should say, pipette your solution. There we go. Quickly take it off. Thumb over the top. Rotate it round. So you get to your line. Put it straight into your conical flask. Let it naturally just pour out on its own. And then we should be ready to start the second one. Now, because you've got a pretty accurate first reading, you should know whereabouts the end point will be for this one. Nearly done. Same again, just make sure you tap the bottom and the sides to get as much liquid out as you can. Put your conical flask in there, and then what you need to do is same again. Now make sure that you keep swirling it as much as you can. So we should be looking at around about 17 again. So that means that our end titra should be around about 34. So when you're getting close to it, when you're getting to about 33, that's when you need to add it a drop at a time. Now this is where your accuracy needs to be pretty good. What you need to do is turn it very slowly So you get a few drops out, give it a swirl. If it does come out a little bit like that, it doesn't really matter. A few drops, give it a swirl. A few drops, give it a swirl. A bit too much, a bit too much. But you can see that it's starting to stay pink a bit longer now, so it gets to that point. So that is your end titrate, and from us, that is 39.9, oh sorry, 33.9 I should say. Which surprisingly comes in at 16.9. So for this, in the case of this one, the results are actually concordant because they're within 0.1 of each other. If you want to make sure that you're super accurate with it, you could always do a third one and to see whether it comes in with them two numbers. So that is how to extract iron from iron tablets, to do an analysis titration, and to get the results that you need to. Your tutor will go through the theory on how to work out how to actually calculate how much iron is in it, but with all the stuff that you've got there now, you should be able to work out how much iron is in iron tablets. So that's a quick explanation or a quick demonstration on how to extract iron from iron tablets. If you're not sure about anything, give your tutor an email, talk to your tutor about it, or talk to one of us about it, and we'll be able to show you the full process of it again. But the key thing now is to make sure that everything's cleaned up. So make sure that everything's rinsed out. Make sure everything's rinsed out with distilled water. Make sure it's put to the side to dry, and your technician or tutor will clear it up for you. So that is basically how to do iron tablet titration. Keep a lookout on other videos, because if you're not sure about anything else, we will start uploading more videos to make sure that you can get the titrations or your practicals done properly, even though you physically can't carry them out. Keep an eye out on the Connect, keep an eye out with your tutor. They'll make sure that you get all the information that you need. And if you need anything else, just ask one of us. That's us signing out for this one. That's the iron tablet titration completed. Here is the results table from the titration completed earlier. Remember to do an average titrate of all titrations completed for a more accurate result.